what we're going to be doing here today is going to be going competitive comparisons between a central boiler and a Crown Royal, and I realize for the Canadian dealers, which is a large part of this group, it's not as big of a competition for us, but for our US dealers it's pretty relevant. So we're going to be going through both of those, and then we're also going to be spending a little bit of time at the end. Eldon's going to walk us through a lot of the training and stuff that we recommend giving to customers before they get or before they run a furnace. And I know there's a lot of very knowledgeable dealers in here as well. So at any point, don't feel shy to jump in and either ask questions or also give pointers to what we're saying, because there's certainly a lot of value and a lot of knowledge in this room. And it doesn't just have to come directly from us. It's a group or collective effort and best practices. So I'm going to start on the central boiler unit here. So when we're talking and I'm saying central boiler, when you have somebody that calls or comes in and says, okay, well, I'm looking at you guys, but I'm also looking at central boiler. What are the things that you guys say, or how do you sell against them, or what do you tell them when they ask that question? Pardon me? We only sell the best. There you go. Yeah. Anyone else? Does anyone else? How do you sell when somebody's asking about a central boiler? Does anyone talk about warranty? Right, it's a pretty important one. So one of the things with central boiler that I've found is they talk about the warranty, but when you actually read about it, it's not terribly clear. Right? They talk about warranty, lifetime, 25 years, but you can't actually figure out what they're selling or what their warranty is, right? So that's a big one that I find for us. Is it's very clear, very direct. This is covered. This is how we do it. With central boiler, it's a guessing game. I mean, I've read it a few times. I still don't totally understand it.
They badmouth a lot of people's furnaces too.
Yeah.
They really draw on everybody else's problems.
Yeah. So, and some of that is going to be, certain dealers will sell a certain way, right? One of the things that I would say central boiler does very well, there's a couple things they do pretty well, but one of the things they do very well is marketing, right? And the overall finish of the unit looks very good. Their marketing. One of the things they like to do within their marketing is they love to talk about how efficient their units are, right? They're 95% efficient or 93 or whatever they advertise, right? Which is a partially true number, but it's not. So what they do is they use their highest efficiency test from all their lab tests and promote that number. They don't promote their overall efficiency number, right? So if you look on their website or their brochures, they'll advertise 93% efficient or whatever it is, but in reality, their units are low to mid 80s. So just to give a reference point there, their efficiencies on their units are 82%, 84, 83, and 86. The numbers themselves aren't bad, but they're certainly not 93%. Right? So the way it works is when you go to get your unit tested and certified, it's kind of like a school course, right? You have different parts of the course are worth a different amount of percentages. So let's say your tests are worth 30%, your assignments are worth 30%, your exams are worth 40%. And it's an overall weighted value. And that gives you your overall efficiency. Like I said, they just take their highest number and that's what they promote. So when we compare our efficiency numbers to theirs are 82, 84, 83, and 86. Ours are 86, 81, and 88. So comparable efficiencies, but still, ours are still higher. Right? So it's very important that we know when we understand and we explain to customers when they say, well, theirs is 93%. It's not. These are the numbers right off of the EPA website. These are going off their test results. They can tell you whatever number they want. The overall efficiency is not 93%. Not impossible, but it'd be very difficult to achieve that. What I like to do on the central boiler here is I kind of like to start on the left-hand side and then go around the back and come around and end up at the front again. So I'm going to kind of go to this side. There's a couple of things that I want to show you guys there when we're talking about functionality and maintenance on it. So the previous few groups, we've had the pleasure of taking out their version of heat exchangers. I know it's everyone's favorite job to talk about, and I realize it's not always fun, but one of the things I want to show you guys and make sure everybody saw and understand is this is basically their heat exchangers and their spirals. Right? When you look at how flimsy and how easy these are to bend, and I'm sure a few of you have seen them and know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is their version of it when you compare it to our spiral here. You know, it's not, you can bend it. There's something to it, right? You can hold it and it's not going to fall over on you. You can move it up, you can move it down, you can abuse it quite a bit before you're actually going to get a little bit of wear on it, right? So where that becomes very important is if we go to the back here now, I want to show you, and I want to pick some holes into some of their bragging points about their easy access to heat exchange. So we pulled a few out, and I burnt this furnace here for approximately a month. And I've gone through it and I've cleaned it. What I was wondering is, does anyone want to try and pull one of their heat exchangers out? I've got a pair of gloves if anyone wants, or if nobody wants to do it, I can try.
You do it.
Yeah, okay. I can gladly do it if nobody else wants to try, I'll gladly do it. So look how easy and clean this is, right? So that's what they want you to do. Every time you want to clean it, they want you to move it up and down. And I was saying to a couple of guys in our office and around us, and man, if this was my furnace, I might do that once or twice. After that, I'm just pulling them out and I'm leaving them out, and I'm going back there once a month or whatever it is with a drill or an air chisel or whatever it is, because this is not a great design. Yeah, it's easy to access, but it's sure not easy to clean. So after you pull them out, or if you can't move them up and down, now they want you to get up, straight up here, and all that. And like I said, this is from about a month, maybe not even, of burning. It's not horrible, but you can see all this stuff that we pulled out of here, right? Now imagine going and cleaning that when somebody's invested it for 3 or 4 months, right? There is one other spiral or heat exchanger or whatever they want to call these things if somebody wants to give it a try, but if you don't, that's okay. I'm just going to go to the other side and grab my light here.
One thing I would add there, so if you want to keep it as clean as we do with our shaking every day, that means you're doing this every day. To be equal.
That's their scrubbers.
Yeah.
That's their scrubbers, yeah.
If we don't do it, what would be the efficiency?
Well, exactly. So I think there's a lot of
connected to a lever?
Nope, nothing.
there's a lot of people that will just pull them out, right? And I can't say I blame them, but now what does that do for your efficiency?
50%?
I would say it probably drops your efficiency.
Well, it's really go down from 93 to...
Then the other thing to keep in mind is there's a chimney plug on here taking it off, but periodically you're gonna have to get back there and clean out. There's really no access behind there. Your access is right here. So you gotta get in there with a shock vac, an air hose, a screwdriver, yeah, chisels, yeah, man, chipping creosote out here, Lynn, wouldn't that be fun?
And, you know, it's always first for the ones back here, they don't really...
No.
First place I run into is when
Yeah, using your head, right? I'm sure we'd all invent a few swear words trying to get in there and clean that up, right?
Stick the torch in there, light it on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, I'm part of it.
Yeah.
Down lower.
So, and it's maybe not something you have to do every 3 months, but I mean, if you look in there, as you can see the ash and the creosote starting to pile up. And eventually it will plug. You have to get up there, get out in there at some point. And that can be a hateful job if I've ever seen one. That's their version of a bypass, yeah.
Looks pretty flimsy.
Well, that it doesn't,
Doesn't work, but that's,
that bypass, that their version of a bypass there, right? So we'll get to that here as well. Then you have the trusty water gauge on the back, which isn't horrible, but every time you gotta see your water level, you gotta come back here, you gotta open it, check your water level, and go accordingly.
And that's get dirty and you can't see it.
You know what? I think you're absolutely right there. It might stay clear for a year or two,
Yeah.
and then after that, you got to replace that tube, or you're guessing. But yeah, they do have the door. It's not a horrible design, but like we said earlier, getting back here and cleaning it sure sounds like a good idea.
Looks like another gas.
yeah, that cover there behind
Yeah,
you.
until you actually have to do it. Yeah, we have this door.
In reality, you're taking that cover off every time too.
Yeah.
So it's not just flipping a door open, you're actually,
You just rest right on top here. Like one more. I think it's this one.
this one.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Might be a little bit.
That's my point.
Yeah. You're gonna fight with this door, and then you get your easy access.
It's like our
door.
old G-Series cover.
Yeah. And the old coffin door, right?
Yeah, but they're a little heavier. You got
Yeah.
to throw them.
Yeah. But that gives you a little bit of a summary of their ease of maintenance, and yeah, maybe easy when it's new, but certainly not while it's after it's been burnt. Gonna step around the other side here if you want. We could probably get maybe about half the people up front, and I'll try and work around here as well. When we talk about plumbing and hooking it up, and on our units we have a nice, easily accessible back door, rear door with your ball valves and your inlets and outlets. When you get this unit, this is all stuff that we've added on here. All right, these fittings and these nipples and these pumps. When you get the unit, it comes covered in spray foam. You got to first chip away that spray foam, which is not horrible in itself. But then you got to add all your elbows, your nipples, whatever you want here, your ball valves. And let's use a scenario where you want to hook this thing up to your house, all right? And you do. So you do that the first year. And then next year you want to heat your garage or a different house or another building. Well, basically now what you have to do, you have to drain the water level down below here to access these parts to add another line set. All right? So it's really not great. And it's tight to work with. You know, one of the things that came up in one of the previous sessions is try and work in there with a pipe wrench, especially if you've got 2, maybe 3 line sets. Imagine having 3 line sets coming off this thing, right? You got pumps and ball valves and things hitting each other. Certainly not very easy. When I look at their plumbing, and I specifically look at the level now, their supply line comes off of, they suck the water off the top, right? So they're sucking the hottest water, and their return lines just return back into here. So leads me to my next point, and I'm gonna ask you a silly question. When you charge a battery, you charge it 50%, 70%, or 100%? It's 100%, right? That's one of the benefits of our recirc pump on our units, right? That designated recirc pump is it keeps the whole water jacket at an even temperature. So you don't have it hot off the top and cold on the bottom. This thing holds a lot of water, right? But you have the bottom third of it that's basically going to be 20, 30, 40 degrees cooler than the rest of it, right? They don't have that recirc pump, and they don't have a way to equalize the temperature. With ours, and that recirc pump pulling off the top and pumping it into the bottom, it's going to make sure that your water temperature stays even all the way through the water jet. This is their control panel. I mean, they've done a couple of good things here in the sense that they have a lot of plug-and-play connections. It does get very tight, and when you start to get into trying to troubleshoot and test power for here and there, yeah, I do like their plug-and-play, but I like our system a lot better for actually being able to troubleshoot something. It's a lot of wires, very tight, not a lot of space to move in here. Any questions or comments or anything on any of this stuff so far? It burns 60% less wood.
Then what?
Yeah, maybe a conventional, less maintenance too. But I don't know what they're comparing that to, right? So it's not exactly sure 60% less wood maybe than a campfire, but here we are.
So these are what's hot for supply, right?
So this is return.
Return.
This is supply down here. Your hot water's here, return is here. And if you want to add, you've got a chip away spray foam there and there and there and there.
So they got two to go to the top then?
Yeah, their supply lines go up the top of the boiler.
Oh, they go up or like,
There's a pretty long tube that goes up pretty high. And there, that way if it's stratified, you still get some hot water.
So you had mentioned that too, so on my G7000, my research front quit,
Yep.
and I had very limited heat in those. I mean, very limited.
Yep.
My water temperature went to like 120 degrees like
110
that.
or
Yeah, I was like, so my son, of course I was going away again. He's like, I got no heat. I said, well, the furnace must be out of wood. No, it's at 180 degrees.
Yeah.
I'm like, it can't be. I said, is the line hot one in the house or warm? I'm like, okay, it's the pump coming in, but
Yeah.
it wasn't. It was just a research pump.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that tells you how much that difference,
The
water
difference
temperature is
between,
from top to bottom.
top to bottom, right?
Yeah.
60, 80.
It's pretty dramatic. Yeah.
Right?
So, are you getting the steel?
Yes, yeah, another good point to touch on is for years, those of you who've been in the industry for a lot of years, will remember Central Boiler for years talking about, mild steel. It's great, it's the only steel to use. It's so good, why would you use anything else, right? Until their gasifier started rotting out. And how quickly did they change from mild steel to 409, right? And now they love to advertise, 409 stainless steel, but what they don't tell you is water jacket's mild steel.
Like this is mild steel here.
Yeah, that's what they say, she's rusted.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have stainless steel firebox, water jacket, stainless steel firebox, mild steel water jacket. It's kind of stainless, but it's still mild, right?
You're not the only one doing that.
No, there's another one. Yeah,
Yeah, right there.
yeah. Come a long ways from where they were though, right? When we move to the front here, I'll talk a little bit about functionality and their firebox and all that. They do have, we'll call it their version of a,
I'll shake the bypass. You
their
can see
version
it. Oh,
of
go
a
ahead.
of a
Go ahead. I'll get out of the way.
firebox, or sorry, of a bypass.
Got it?
I got it here. Right, so a big difference between our units and their units is our units work off suction, right? We're sucking and drawing the air through. Their furnaces work on forced air, but forcing it through, right? So their bypass, which is smaller than ours, really doesn't function the same. It does allow some smoke and stuff to come out of the firebox before you load it, but it's a far cry from what ours are. Right? So they do have a bypass in the end, or at the end, but it really doesn't do a whole bunch, and especially compared to ours, which is another really big benefit of our G series compared to theirs, is ours can be installed for indoor use, fully certified for indoor use. They can't. Right? When I'm talking about the airflow of their units, we're talking about forcing air in. This is the fan that they use, right? And they don't use actuators, they use stepper motors. And they do claim some modulation within their unit, but what it goes off more so is not your firebox temperature and not your water temperature and your oxygen level. It measures more so your combustion chamber temperature. There's a probe on the outside, you can see it inside here at the bottom. There's a probe that measures your reaction chamber temperature, and that's more so what tells these to open controls, right? But they have the stepper motors instead of the actuators, and they really don't modulate a whole bunch. And further to that, even if they would modulate, when you have a stepper motor, and I can move this up or down, right? But is there really a big difference if If this plate is up here, say up an inch, half an inch, or a quarter inch, it's still going to pull and draw about the same amount of air. There might be a slight difference, but it really doesn't truly modulate like ours do. On top of that, you're forcing the air into this box. You can't control how much air is going to go into into your top air, into your bottom air. It's going to be the path of least resistance there.
One thing I wanted to add, what the other guy was saying is that we can go in and adjust on the control. We can make it do whatever we want. This one, there is no adjustment. It's locked.
Yeah.
The dealer or customer can't mess with it. They would have to get instructions from Central Boiler.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't go in and change the settings on your control. You either have to have your potentially dealer come there and enter a password onto your control and then change it, or have them change it remotely. So you don't have the freedom and the ability to be able to tune it how you want. When we're talking inside the firebox, you have your top air, you have your bottom air, and your bottom air really isn't, it's not the same as ours. What they have, and you can come and see it here, I believe they call it a charge tube. It's basically a piece of bar, a square piece of tubing that sits above your brick, and then they also have your side air tubes. Now, you can pull these off to get behind here and to clean them out if you need, but what becomes very difficult is on the inside of the firebox to get in there and clean out those air channels is extremely difficult. And also, if you need to get out the air tubes, or their version of air tubes inside the firebox, they're very stiff and very rigid. And so if there's any kind of flex, or if there's any kind of warping, trying to get them in and out becomes very, very difficult. Any questions on anything or comments so far? No, we don't know about it. Bottom door, that's just like a refractory.
No.
Put it on. I'm going to touch on here on the lower combustion chamber a little bit, but before I do, does anyone remember the 3 T's of combustion?
Time.
Time? Yep. Yep.
Turbulence.
Time, temperature, turbulence, exactly. So you need the right mixture of all 3 to get a complete combustion. Now, I'm not a very smart guy, but I know looking at their bottom brick and their horseshoe, that's going to be a tough, that's going to be very tough to achieve those 3 with the size of that brick. You don't have a lot of time, and you certainly don't have a lot of turbulence within that brick to achieve a full gasification. You might have the temperature, but the time and the turbulence you certainly will not be able to achieve there. When you compare that brick to what ours in our tornado combustion chamber, and being able to have the air and the gases ignite and go down into that circular hole and go back, make a turn, come back out the front, there's a lot more time and a lot more turbulence for it to combust fully.
And if you would notice, like on our unit, you've opened that bottom door, and when it's really running hard, you got flame coming all the way around the corner. Like it's filling, it's using all that thing. It'd be nice for it to be even longer. And then I look at that and it's like that. Like most of their flame's just out against the water jacket, cooling off. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty different way of doing it.
Yeah. Are there any questions, comments, concerns, anything major that you guys have to add that I maybe would have missed here?
Those comparisons are on our dealer portal.
Yes, so that's kind of what I'm basing or structuring this off of, is the competitor comparisons that we've written. And they are available both on the dealer app and the dealer portal if you do want to review them. We are going to continue to update them as we
It's a
learn
shield
more
that
and
gets
as they
hotter.
evolve, and they evolve, we'll continue to
Is
update.
that metal or is that something else?
It's,
Metal, right?
yeah. I'm not sure if
Are
it's
there
stainless or mild.
any questions on this one at all?
I don't know.
This would be similar to the older style,
Yeah,
the way the horseshoe one looked before.
in some ways, yes. Like the brick, I would say, would be more comparable, but even the unit overall, I wouldn't even go as far as say it's comparable because.
I'm talking lower bottom.
Yeah, and even our old horseshoe, it wasn't as good of a design as our new ones, but they were a lot longer. right? This one, we're talking a foot, maybe 12 inches, right? And it's big, and it's kind of just spills where it spills and it goes, right? There's no control. It's about just forcing it through and,
It's like old G100
yeah, exactly.
side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have they been in the gasifier?
Central boiler, I'd say they've been doing it as long as.
But longer than anybody.
Yeah, they just have them.
Yeah, I would say probably the first ones to do it pretty well would have been Empire,
Yeah.
right?
Side,
Um,
yeah.
But Central Boiler was around in 07, 08, they were doing it.
Yeah.
They had some trouble, but
Yeah.
I think they still have problems.
No way, it burnt 60% less wood, Ken, it said so.
Oh, is that right?
Less maintenance.
Yeah.
Any questions, anything else you guys want to go over or have any comments on?
I guess being in a positive box, your door gaskets don't last very long, as the negative box.
There's-
the
yep,
City Masters,
there's-
They last for years.
There's certainly something to be said there as well with forcing air in. First of all, you're going to notice and you're a lot more susceptible to a door leak, right? And it's also feasible that you're going to burn away that gasket faster.
like if you have a leak on a pusher fan, you're going to be forcing that dirty, smoky air out, and it's slicking everything up with creosote as it comes out. Or a suction, you're pulling fresh air across it.
All in.
And so it's, even if you have a leak, you're not packing it full of creosote.
Well, you get overheating if you're sucking it.
Well, right. But I'm saying during a burn, normal burn.
Yeah, if anyone else has any questions or comments, I'm more than happy to go over them. If not, then I'm going to jump over to the next unit here.
Yeah, because heat mass is so good, how come you guys are still in business?
You know, we're working on it. Don't have all the answers, but we're working on it.
Sure, a lot quieter than
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I don't have to worry about the,
no big tractor trailers anymore.
No.
wow.
So when we jump over to the Crown Royal unit here, when Eldon and I were going through them on Monday, getting everything ready, we're kind of looking and we're going through it, and you kind of smelled it and mentioned, this furnace just really reminds me of like RG series, 2016, 2017. There's a lot of similarities there. And there's things that they've done well. But there's things that we've done similar things, and we've learned the lessons on what to do and why that doesn't work, and we're still always striving to get better. There's a few things that they do that it's a good idea, but it's not totally thought through. So on our furnaces, we have the easy clean handle, right? You don't have to go to the back of the furnace and open up a door and clean up and down and get filthy. It's all on the side. Well, their version of that is similar, but it's up at the front here. All right, so this is what spirals up. Not a horrible design until you close the handle a little bit too hard and you punch the bolt in the front. So if anyone wants to try, you're more than welcome to, but you scratch your fingers there. They're a little tight. One of the things that Crown Royal does, and the way they like to sell, is they sell simple. It's a simple furnace with simple components, off-the-shelf components, and they're absolutely right. It's a very simple furnace, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. However, there are a lot of things that we do a lot better. One of the biggest and most obvious is efficiency. Yeah, you can get a simple furnace to pass emissions and efficiency tests, but when I look at our furnaces and compare, I'm going to first read you their efficiency numbers on their furnaces. So their efficiency numbers are 77, 75, and 83% efficient. When we compare them to ours at 86, 81, and 88, when you compare our highest and their lowest, a 13% difference in efficiency. Yeah, it's simple. It is. Because all they do is just force air through there. There's no modulation, there's no oxygen sensor. They just force enough air through it to get it going, and doesn't make it bad. But one of the things that I really like to point out with our furnaces and when comparing them to anybody's is we are an industry leader. We're not an industry follower. We do things different and we do things better than anyone else. We're the only one with dual modulating dampers and an oxygen sensor. Nobody else has it right now, but they're going to have it in the future. If the emissions laws and the EPA keep doing everything that they're doing, you will have to do it. And yes, there has been some struggles with ours, and we're still fine tuning and working to improve them. But if everything, if I remember right, it's 2027 for the next EPA regulation, I think. If that gets stricter, everybody's going to be starting where we did in 2020, and we're going to be 7 years ahead. Right? So that's where we position ourselves as an industry leader, not an industry follower. On their furnace, it's a little bit hard to see unless you're right up at the front. But when you talk about airflow, this one does work on suction. But it's a pretty primitive way of bringing air into the furnace. So with ours, you have your top air, your bottom air, there's different air chambers. On this one, there's basically a big, you call them a 4 or 6 inch square tube right at the back, and we've left the air panels half in and half out so you can see it. But at the back there, that is your air intake. And the way it's designed is it sucks the air in through that channel. Some of it goes down into your brick. The other stuff goes into the side. When I was first setting up this unit and I was getting ready to burn, I couldn't figure out why. Why do they have a raised brick? It's raised, it's kind of tapered like it was like, this doesn't make sense to me as to why. And I couldn't figure out until I took it apart to clean it. And the reason that is, if you look at the back of the firebox, there's little air channels that are poured into the brick there. At the bottom, that's where their bottom air goes that gets injected into their brick. It's a good idea, except you can see I've already chipped a lot of it away. There's a bunch of creosote that's going to form there, and then you're going to have no bottom air. And the only way to really tell is if you shut down the furnace, pull off the air channels, and pull the bricks full. There's no way to inspect it and actually clean it unless you shut the furnace down. The other thing that design can have issues with is thermal cycling. So if you remember, for those of you who've been around for a while, on the older G Series 16, 17, before we changed the airbox, you'd get that thermal cycling inside the airbox, right? You'd get that wet, sticky, gooey creosote, right? It's the same thing that happens in the back of that furnace, because you get that thing thermal cycling, you get that heat coming off the brick, then it rises, hits the cool water jack, the cool air panel, runs down and will form a sticky creosote. And I'll show you that when we go back to the back of the furnace there as well. What we'll do now, or what I'll do is I'm going to pull out the brick so you guys can see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about like a raised brick.
While he's digging in there, basically their bottom air comes in and it's just a space and it just kind of dumps over into that horseshoe underneath. It doesn't have the air jets like ours do. There's like a groove that it drops in. You can see it inside. So it's not there's no turbulence like spraying and mixing thoroughly like ours would do. And there's no way to control it with individual dampers or any kind of settings. It just kind of does whatever it does.
Any questions on any of this stuff or anything that doesn't quite make sense yet? All right, maybe what we'll do here is we'll get you to the back of the furnace here, and I'm going to have Eldon talk about the heat exchangers. And while he's doing that, I'm going to be up front working the handle back and forth so you guys can see it.
You guys want to shine a light for me? I think you just stand back a little bit and however, I'm not sure how strong it is. Yeah, well, I think so. I just need to see. So this is our access panel. So like we would on ours have the dual panel, one for the fan and one for that. This has a door that opens. I knocked my knuckle on this elbow, so just a heads up, be careful with it if you guys are going in and out. So the whole fan swings out. I'll get to some of the other things here, but if you look in here, that we can get, I'll use my light. These are their spirals. We actually took a couple of them out there so you can see them, but that's their turbulators. Just wait a second to shake them so I don't pinch myself. Yeah, so these are the turbulators. They're probably half as thick as what ours are. They're pretty thin. There's quite a bit of slop in those turbulators. You can shake it there, and I want you guys to watch. I want you to be thinking about what you're seeing. Anybody tell me anything different about those than what ours are? If you're familiar with our turbulators, they don't move as far. Okay.
That's going up and the other cat's going down.
So what now? I'm
One's
talking.
going up, one's going down.
Yeah, they're counterbalanced, so you're swinging. That's why it's easy because there's no weight. You said not as far. You said something else.
Take the stuff from one and dump it into the other.
Maybe. Yeah.
There's no, oh no, you just like back.
Yeah. What does a turbulator actually do? You mentioned the short stroke. What is a turbulator actually there for?
Slow down the flue gas.
Yeah, it's to spin it.
Supposed to push it to the side, right?
Push it to the sidewalls. Is there anything else it does?
Cleans the.
Clean, like it scrapes the tube walls. How much of the tube wall is that thing scraping? You think about it while he's shaking.
About 4 inches.
Okay, but it's, so if you look at this is, a 1 in whatever. They're doing from here to here is a full turn. Here to here. They're doing about a half or a quarter turn stroke. There's a good half or 3/4 of the tube that's never getting touched. It's just scraping up and down loosely. So there's a good portion of that tube that never hits. Ours, the stroke is about twice as long. And it's scraping the full spiral. So one of the reasons why, like we say, they stick sometimes or they get tight, is because we actually want it to hit everything. So we're done, it's clean. So they fit a little tighter. They're a lot heavier. You can slam it. These would be similar to in 2016, we tried some lighter turbulators. If any of you guys were around back in those days. And you guys did some sessions the other day and we were talking about pulling turbulators. So anybody want to guess how you would get one of those out if you wanted to take them out? This is water jacket up here.
So you have to.
So this is how, no, I'm done bent this thing. Yeah, so this is how they would go in and out. That's bloody knuckles.
Yeah, now do that when it's full of creosote. Well, and then the back one do it.
Yeah. And how you clean the tube, right? Like what tool you get in to clean the tube?
You can't rot it out from the top. You have to have a flexible.
Yeah.
It's doable, but you sure don't want to wait around until it's jammed up. No way. Now, to be fair, I don't hear nearly as much about these things plugging in as ours. I mean, they don't typically. They have a really big fan wheel, and they pull a lot of air through, which drops the efficiency, but it does tend to keep it cleaned out. It's not as a huge issue, but I sure wouldn't want to tackle it.
The other couple important things that I want to touch on while we're here is we look at the functionality of everything. And one of the biggest things that I've noticed between ours, you want to take that fan off, and I'll do it. Take the fan off here just so you guys can see. It's a heavy fan. It's hardwired in. Where do you put it?
I'm gonna let him do it by himself because that's the real.
Okay, so I got the fan out now. What do I do with it?
You hold it, somebody else does it.
There you go. So you can put it down here. They do give you enough cord for that, but every time you got to clean your fan wheel, you want to clean your fan wheel, or you want to clean out in here, this is what you're doing. And then when you want to go and put it back in, it's kind of the same battle, right? It's manageable, but I wouldn't want to be doing this every day.
The lineups, I've seen it.
Don't you like your slotted connections?
All doable, but just like we were saying earlier, just not always terribly well thought out. The other very, does anyone else notice a difference? Big difference that's jumping out at anyone while we're back here? Insulation, right? Spray foam compared to bad insulation with foil. Works, it's okay. It's kind of dirty. Every time you're working in and out here, you're catching, it's ripping, it absorbs water. When I was talking earlier,
Yep, sorry.
when I was talking earlier about the thermal cycling, I'm gonna get this drill out of here before I get that all dirty. We'll open their version of kind of their air box back here. This is after a month. And that's a very common problem. If you look, the people kind of at the front can see, you see the water in there? This has been shut down for 2-3 weeks. This is a month of burning. Right? Imagine 6 months or a year, then you get in here too. Right? It's wet, it's sticky, it's goopy. And then every time you want to clean it, this is what you have to do. And then what do you do with this? Where do you put it? Yeah, hopefully you got
Make sure you have the motor.
a dog, a son, a brother, someone to come and help you that way. But
One thing we noticed when we opened it up, and we said it before, but as an extension from that, they have very small holes going to their top air. And in a couple weeks of burning we had, those things were all plugged. They were hitting no air into their brick. Sorry, bottom.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like with this design, with it will thermocycle. The way it's designed, it's an open thing that can just chug. And it's going to run creosote, it's going to plug, and you cannot tell. And there's no way to even come back here and like check dampers to see. Like I can, hold a piece of paper up and see which one's pulling and kind of isolate it even over the phone. You can't. It's all back in completely hidden. Even taking this off, you can't see. It's down underneath.
What's that clamp, that frame
yeah,
clamp?
I'll get to that here shortly. The other thing I wanted to touch base on is their air opening system. Does everyone remember solenoids? They're back. Doesn't necessarily make it bad, but I think we would all agree actuators are a lot more reliable and a lot better, right? And these things, they stick open in a power cycle, they can hang up. Actuators are spring loaded, so even in a power outage they close, right? A lot more reliable. This bottom chamber here is, I'll close it so you can see. Again, not a horrible idea, but this is to get access. This is to get access underneath or behind their brick and underneath their spirals. So you pull that door open, and then you do get access back here. The problem with this is really kind of the only way to access behind their brick and underneath their spirals. So when you are pulling ash out, you're pulling it back. You're pulling it back here. You're dumping it here. You're dumping it on your insulation. If there's any moisture, that's coming into here and that's soaking up into your insulation. Not a bad idea, just not terribly well thought out, right? I talked a little bit earlier at the front about the other furnace as well, but no smoke bypass. They have a loading switch, kind of like our GS series, if anyone remembers those. That loading switch, the same idea, right? Same thing. They can't be installed indoors. Ours can. Kind of similar story to the central boiler. When you get the furnace, this is how it comes. You get end caps at least on this one, and some nipples to play with. But you got to add your elbows, your ball valves, whatever they want, and they want you to use stainless steel ones, but they don't provide them for you. So on top of the furnace, now you got to go out and buy your pump flanges and your ball valves and whatever you need. Same problem we were talking about on this one or on the central boiler. No recirc line or recirc loop. So same problem. Now this one is a little bit more exaggerated, where it's very common for their customers or end users to hear bubbling in their furnace. It's because the top of their water jacket is boiling. Now their return lines do run to the front of their furnace, but their supply lines basically just draw off the back here. So a lot of times what they'll recommend is that you crisscross. So you pull from here, you return here, or you add a designated recirc loop, key it off or whatever it is to increase flow. So they won't give you a recirc pump, but they want you to have the benefits of a recirc pump to keep that water jacket even.
Which is how we did in 2017
Yeah.
or whatever it was.
Sorry, just as a reminder for, especially for the new dealers here, we have the recirc pump, and besides the boiling at the top, using a recirculation pump and getting the right amount of flow through a jacket, the water jacket, it's like filling a battery, charging it all the way up.
Already
versus-
said.
Okay, okay, sorry.
That's okay. But that's the back here. Are there any questions, any concerns, or any comments you guys want to add, or any questions you want to ask at all?
Yeah, the other thing it'll probably do is, if you have antifreeze in there, it'll cook it. It'll destroy it.
Yeah, absolutely could.
You got acid in there after a while.
Yeah, was it glycolic acid or?
Well, like glycol is acidic as it comes, right?
Yeah.
And then they put inhibitors in. And if you cook them, like if you burn them,
Yeah.
it goes back and becomes acidic.
Yeah.
And then it eats anything steel
Yeah.
and really fast.
Very
I
good point.
found with all the repair work, boilers, which a cast iron are notorious, right? They turn off, you turn the pump off, they go to 250 degrees. And at that time, you burn those inhibitors. If you have a pump moving it, you never have a problem.
Yeah.
And I learned that by experience, and like, why does this system rot out and why this one doesn't, right? Like the same boiler, same everything. And the one was just the way the pump was controlled. The pump didn't run, it turned off with the heating system. And as they were sitting, it cooked the antifreeze. And then it gets acidic.
Some of it is the way they've got this design. The return line goes all the way to the front, way over in the corner, and this one goes to the front all the way in that corner. And so it's very easy to have a dead pocket. Like our C series, the return lines and the G's, their mixing pump go up and aim towards the middle, so that it spreads down evenly across the
Yeah,
tank.
you get more out
So
of
there's
it.
some internal flow issues that aren't thought through.
Yeah. You know, and then when you talk about efficiency, right? Like if you add everything up, you add up the loss of efficiency with a dirty boiler, the loss in insulation over a year. How much, you know, how much more wood, or how much the year efficiency on your fuel putting in, what, you know, there's a big difference all around when you talk about efficiency, right?
Absolutely.
So it all plays in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you were talking earlier, if you compare our highest number to their lowest, it's 13%.
Yeah.
Right, and then add those things on top of it.
And you
how
add
much
those
more?
things on top. I mean, you have some of them too, like anything
Yeah.
else, right? Like you lose a little bit for whatever.
Yeah.
But those are compounding.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Something else about their whole stainless steel valve thing, there is actually a sticker on there somewhere that says like you'll void your warranty if you put black iron
Yeah,
fittings
you
on
put
there.
black iron, yeah,
So, like,
so
that's-
they want you to put stainless steel.
Yeah, like for
But
such
they
a
won't
little
give
thing.
them to you.
Yeah, and for such a little thing, they'll make a big deal out of it, right? Like that's
Yeah, well, the stainless eats the steel, right? So they work and it eats up the steel. That's why you should have brass, like you do it, right? You come out stainless steel elbow, you have the brass valve, and then you hook whatever separates them.
Is there any other questions or comments on here at all? I know we are starting to get to that point where we do want to spend a little bit more time on the next part here.
Where are they made?
International Falls, Minnesota. So they're not, they're not big
They're not in
in Canada at all, more so in the US, but
They have a hard time competing. They can't get into the Canadian market because they're expensive in the US already. And so they've tried to get into Canada for a couple of years, but their price is, I don't know, thousands higher than what ours would be.
Even at home, they're a good bit higher than we are.
What would the prices be on these ones brand new right now? Any ideas?
I'd have to look back. It depends which model. If you're looking at like a conventional style or gasification, I have to look back on the US pricing there. But I would say a lot of times our furnaces are either very comparable when you compare sizes and apples to apples, or we're $300, $400, $500 less. And then especially when you get to the conventional style, like their entry level size for conventional model, if I remember right, I want to say ours is $1,000, $1,500
Oh, at least.
cheaper.
Yeah, they're like our C150
Yeah.
on the
And
US
at
market.
3,000 in Canada.
Yeah, is in US dollars is around $8,000 retail,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And maybe a little more, 82, something like that. And they're like 10.5, 10.9.
Yeah.
They're way up there.
Quite
But that's on the
more.
small, and the bigger ones are a little closer, but they're consistently 500 to 1,000 higher. What I'm hearing anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of what I've seen as well.
How long have they been around? 'Cause I never
Do you
heard
know,
of it.
Ryan, when did they start? Around the same?
Yeah, actually, if you go way, way back, when my dad was first starting this, he actually built those for him. And then
Yeah.
they split, and he created Heatmaster.
That's why they're similar looking.
Yeah, that's why you see some similarities to this day.
This roof design looks like an 06 model Heatmaster.
Yeah,
Very similar.
yeah.
I'm looking at this and I'm like, man, this looks like
Yeah.
old memories.
So they split in 2003, so our companies kind of started about the same time.
But then they're, like the Suns took over, they did some shuffling around, I'm
Yeah.
not sure.